Japan built something that was never supposed to sink. 73,000 tons of steel. 9 guns, the largest ever mounted on any warship in human history. And yet, on one single afternoon, she vanished, swallowed by the sea, taking 1,023 men down with her into 1,350 meters of darkness. And for 71 years, nobody could find her. Why? What was Japan so desperate to hide that even after she sank, the silence continued? The answer will change how you think about power, ambition, and the price of being wrong. Welcome to Deep Wave Discovery, the channel where history's deepest secrets finally surface. Now, before we go any further, a humble request. If you are watching this right now, you have lived enough years to know that not everything powerful survives. Then this channel was made for you. Hit that subscribe button. Think of it like watering a plant you've been growing for years. One small action today keeps the wisdom coming tomorrow. And while you're at it, drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from today? Whether you're sitting in Karachi, London, New York, or a quiet town somewhere in between, we want to know. This community belongs to all of you. In 1938, inside a heavily guarded shipyard in Nagasaki, Japan, something extraordinary began to take shape. Workers arrived before dawn. They left after dark, and surrounding the entire construction dock, enormous curtains of hemp rope were hung from towering poles, blocking every angle of view from the sky above. No foreign aircraft, no foreign eyes, no foreign knowledge. Japan was building a secret, and that secret was Musashi. She was not simply a warship. She was a declaration, a message written in steel, sent to every naval power on Earth. The message was simple: Japan cannot be challenged at sea. At 73,000 tons fully loaded, Musashi was one of the 2 heaviest battleships ever constructed in human history. Her sister ship, Yamato, was the only vessel that matched her size. Together, they represented the absolute peak of what industrial engineering could produce in the age of battleships. Her main guns told the full story. 9 460mm cannons arranged in 3 massive triple turrets. Each gun could fire a shell weighing 1,460 kilograms across a distance of 40 kilometers. No enemy ship could survive a direct hit. In theory, no enemy ship could even get close enough to fire back. Her armor belt was 410 millimeters thick. That is 16 inches of hardened steel, wrapping around her most vital internal spaces. 4 powerful steam turbines pushed her through the water at 27 knots. She stretched 263 meters from bow to stern, nearly as long as 3 American football fields placed end to end. She cost the equivalent of several $billion in today's money. And Japan believed every single yen was worth it. But here is where the story becomes a warning. While Japan was pouring its finest engineers, its rarest metals, and its most skilled workers into building Musashi, the world around her was quietly changing. Aircraft carriers were rising. Fighter planes were getting faster. Aerial torpedoes were becoming more precise. The future of naval warfare was no longer decided on the surface of the ocean. It was being decided above it. Japan saw this change coming and chose to ignore it. They had already committed too much money, too much pride, too much national identity, to admit that the very weapon they were building might already be obsolete before it ever fired a single shot. That is the first lesson Musashi teaches. The most dangerous investment is the one you are too proud to question. There is a particular kind of danger that comes not from weakness, but from believing too deeply in your own strength. By October 1944, Japan's position in the Pacific was deteriorating fast. Island after island had fallen. Supply lines were stretched thin. The Imperial Navy had already lost 4 aircraft carriers at the Battle of Midway, a wound from which it never truly recovered. And yet, Japan still had Musashi. And in the minds of Japanese admirals, that meant something. She sailed into the Philippine Sea as part of Admiral Kurita's Center Force, a powerful fleet assembled for Operation Shogo 1. Japan's desperate TO's last major attempt to destroy American invasion forces gathering at Leyte Gulf. The plan was bold. Some called it brilliant. Others called it a gamble dressed in the uniform of strategy. Musashi's role was simple. She would push through the narrow waters of the Philippine Sea, break into Leyte Gulf, and unleash those 9 colossal guns on the American fleet. Her firepower alone was supposed to change the outcome of the entire battle. But something had already gone wrong. Before a single shot was fired, American submarines had spotted Kurita's fleet the moment it entered Philippine waters. By dawn on October 24th, reconnaissance aircraft from Task Force 38 had already located every Japanese ship. And by 10:30 in the morning, the first American strike wave was already descending from the sky. Here is where size became a curse. Musashi was the largest ship in the formation. She was impossible to miss. When American pilots looked down from their cockpits at the gray fleet below, their eyes went directly to her. She was the obvious target. The prize was the one ship whose sinking would matter most. Wave after wave of aircraft locked onto her. Torpedo bombers came in low and fast across the water. Dive bombers descended from above through clouds of anti-aircraft fire. Each successive wave hit harder than the last. And while other Japanese ships maneuvered and survived, Musashi absorbed punishment that was never meant for one vessel alone. She had been designed to withstand the guns of any battleship on Earth. Nobody had designed her to withstand 259 aircraft. And this is the second lesson Musashi teaches. In a world that has already changed, the most powerful version of yesterday is still yesterday. There is a moment in every collapse that is not visible from the outside. A moment when the damage has already become irreversible, but the structure is still standing, still moving, still appearing functional. Musashi reached that moment, somewhere between the third and fourth wave of American aircraft, and nobody aboard her fully understood it yet. By 1:30 in the afternoon, she had already absorbed multiple torpedo hits along her port side. Massive holes torn open below the waterline. Thousands of tons of seawater flooding forward compartments with a pressure and speed that damage control teams were struggling to match. Her bow was sinking visibly lower with every passing minute. Her list had grown to 15 degrees to port, a number that any experienced sailor understood as deeply serious, and still. The aircraft kept coming. What happened inside Musashi during those final hours reveals something that no engineering blueprint ever captures. Her damage control teams worked with extraordinary discipline. Sailors moved through flooding corridors carrying pumps, sealing hatches, shifting ballast to counter the list. Officers made calculated decisions under conditions of pure chaos. Counter-flooding was ordered, meaning they deliberately flooded compartments on the opposite side, just to keep her level enough to continue moving. They were not trying to save the ship anymore. They were simply trying to buy time. By 3:30 in the afternoon, Musashi had fallen behind the formation entirely. Her speed had dropped to 6 knots. A ship that had once powered through the ocean at 27 knots was now barely crawling. Her bow sat so deep in the water that waves were washing across her forward deck. And those 9 guns, those magnificent, devastating, historically unprecedented guns, sat silent. Not once. During the entire battle, did Musashi fire her main battery at an enemy vessel. The weapon that had consumed billions in resources, that had defined Japan's naval identity, that had been built to dominate surface warfare, never got the chance to prove itself. At 7:15 in the evening, Captain Inaguchi gave the order. All non-essential personnel, abandon ship. Roughly 1,400 men went over the side into dark, oil-covered water. 20 minutes later, Musashi rolled to port and disappeared beneath the surface, taking 1,023 men. And Japan's greatest illusion. Down with her. The third lesson Musashi teaches is the most painful of all. Sunk costs do not care how much you have already invested. The ocean never negotiates. The ocean keeps secrets. Better than any government ever could. For 71 years, Musashi lay undisturbed. 1,350 meters beneath the surface of the Philippine Sea, buried under decades of silt, covered in marine growth. Surrounded by a darkness so complete that no human eye had seen her since the night she sank in October 1944. Japan never officially confirmed her existence during most of the war, and after the war ended, the silence simply continued. Survivors carried their memories privately. Naval historians debated coordinates and depth estimates. Families of the 1,023 men who never came home had no grave to visit, no location to stand before, no place to direct their grief. For 7 decades, Musashi was simultaneously Japan's greatest warship and its most carefully unacknowledged loss. Then in March 2015, a research vessel named Octopus arrived quietly in Philippine waters. She was owned by Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft, a man who had spent years and considerable private fortune searching for historically significant shipwrecks across the world's oceans. His team carried cutting-edge multi-beam sonar systems, autonomous underwater vehicles, and remotely operated cameras capable of transmitting high-definition footage from depths that would crush any human being instantly. They searched systematically, grid by grid, square kilometer by square kilometer, covering 5 nautical miles of seafloor, with a patience and precision that mirrored the engineering discipline that had originally built Musashi herself. On March 2, 2015, the ROV descended toward a promising sonar contact, and from the darkness below, enormous steel structures began to emerge. Hull plating, armor belts, and then, unmistakable, a gun turret, its massive barrels still pointing outward, toward an enemy that had long since gone home. The measurements confirmed everything. Hull dimensions matching Musashi's exact specifications. Torpedo blast holes along the port side consistent with American attack records. The 4-propeller configuration unique to the Yamato class. Anchor structures matching no other battleship ever built. On March 3, 2015, the team made it official. Musashi had been found, and what the wreck revealed was more valuable than any treasure. The damage patterns showed precisely how she had died, where the armor had held, where it had failed, which compartments had flooded first, which structural decisions had accelerated her collapse. For naval engineers and strategic analysts, it was a forensic masterclass in the consequences of misaligned investment. But beyond the engineering data, beyond the historical documentation, beyond the coordinates and the sonar maps, Musashi's wreck delivered one final, undeniable verdict. Japan had built the most powerful battleship in human history. At the exact moment in history when battleships no longer decided wars, they had invested their greatest resources into their greatest certainty, without ever questioning whether that certainty still held true. And that is the final lesson Musashi teaches. The market does not reward the most powerful player. It rewards the most aware one. Musashi did not sink because she was weak. She sank because the world changed, and Japan refused to change with it.